Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Post Frame Podcast. In this 4-part series, we're going to be covering why post frame construction is a smart choice for commercial buildings. Okay, in this one, we're going to cover benefit number 2, which is going to be the economical heating and cooling. Why is that important in any post frame industry?
Well, I mean, the reason it's important is in a commercial structure, and like you and I are at work, right? People are in and around your building 8 to 10 to 12 hours throughout the day, but you're gonna be tempering that air. You're gonna have some sort of heating and cooling system running for a large part of the day. The air inside the building you're trying to heat and cool, you don't want that to be an ineffective combination of a system, right? You want to choose a good system to heat this or cool the space that you're in, but you want your building to help work for you so that you don't lose that energy and your energy price, your cost of heating and cooling just skyrockets. So that's where I think post frame has a real advantage. You can insulate post frame in about any type that you want, right? So you've got a couple different options of how you insulate a post frame building, and I'll maybe throw steel frame in there to kind of highlight some of the different systems. Probably the most common is batt insulation. We do that a lot in post frame buildings. You fill the cavity of the wall that's either 6 inches or 8 inches thick. You fill that cavity with a batt fiberglass insulation.
Is that the big roll of insulation that you see?
Yeah, that's right. And we get those specifically made for the width of our columns so that you have from column to column full insulation, right? And that's either 6 or 8 inches thick. That provides you a good R value, R19 or R25, for building an effective or an efficient wall system. You compare that to stick frame. And stick frame, if you remember back from Benefit 1, we talked about how the structural members are much closer together, 16 inches or 24 inches on center. You have to put that batt insulation every 16 inches or 24 inches
In
on
those
center,
cavities.
in those cavities, and there's going to be breaks in that insulation. And wherever you have breaks, hopefully it fits snugly in between all those framing members, but there's a lot more opportunity for air loss or for ineffectiveness, right? You have a little gap, or cold air to in here has an easier pathway, potentially. Depends on how you install it. It's also not as thick, because in a stick frame wall, generally your outside structure is going to be built out of 2x4 walls. So you're only going to have 3.5 inch thick batt insulation versus 6, maybe 8 with your post frame wall. So batt insulation is definitely a highly utilized option. Now we start seeing a lot of people doing spray foam. That's a highly effective way to go about insulating your wall. I mean, you just cover that entire wall, right? You have as long as the installation is good, you have no real opportunity for air gaps there for the air you don't want to squeak through. And then you can make it as thick as you want. And so you can get some really good R values out of spray foaming your wall. And then you would cover that up just like you would if it was batt insulation with your steel or with your drywall or whatever. Your interior finish would operate the same between batt insulation and spray foam. So those are two really good systems. I think post frame utilizes batt insulation better than what stick frame does. But now let's transition and compare that to steel frame. Steel frame there's a lot of the technical term for it is vinyl back. A lot of people might say bag and sag, or I always forget what this one is, but where it's draped insulation, some people might call it, is because if you envision just the structure, right, just the framing members, right, you don't have any steel or anything on this building. If you can just envision the trusses, the wall framing, and the roof framing with vinyl back, you then lay over top of that framing this 4 inches or 6 inches maybe thick. It's batt insulation that has it's vinyl backed, meaning when you're standing inside, that the one side of the insulation that you would see from the inside has a white vinyl on it. That's why it's called vinyl back insulation. And so that lays over top your roof structure, and that lays up against your wall structure, and then you put your outside cladding on. You put your roof steel on, you put your wall steel on. Although it's common, that doesn't mean it's the best thing, right? When you think about 6-inch vinyl backed insulation over top of your framing, there's a couple things that aren't as great about that. You're losing a lot where it's smushed up against your framing members. You only have 6 inches likely of batt insulation when it's full thickness, compared to the other R values you could get to with batt insulation and spray foam. And then the last kind of negative about it is it goes up and over your roof system. And so like in a steel frame building, you're heating and cooling all of what in a post frame building would be considered the attic space, right? Because that the insulation envelope goes over top the structure, you're heating and cooling all that space up top. That with a ceiling and blown-in insulation in a post frame building, you would be limiting how much space you're heating and cooling. And so therefore the volume of space your mechanical system has to heat, cool, ventilate, and all that. You minimize that amount of space so that your system can be more effective. And the space you actually want to be heated or cooled, it's just more effective with that versus having a bigger amount to do or to work with. So
because you're going to save money too, because you're not heating.
You're not heating all that stuff, right?
All that space up top.
Yeah, right. And everything goes up, right? So all your heat's going to rise to that spot versus, again, right, you're at your ceiling level, even if it's 18 or 20 foot tall, right, in some big warehouse, you're not heating up to 25, 30 feet up into your peak area, right, where you would with the steel frame. So how that insulation is put into your structure, what type of insulation you use, all of that makes a difference for your commercial building that you're going to be heating and cooling probably 8 to 10 to 12 hours every day, right? In the winter, summer, spring, all the way through the year, because your business likely doesn't just operate one season of the year. Yeah, how you heat and cool it is a big deal for just the lifetime cost of what you're going to spend on utilities and really how it's going to feel inside. So it's a worthwhile part to invest in when you're thinking about a commercial structure, for sure.